Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chiefs Digest live Q&A. I am Derrick from Chiefs Digest, and normally we usually have Nick Jacobs, our good friend, join us at some point in the evening, but Nick unfortunately has some conflicts, so he will not be with us tonight. So you're just stuck with me. I'll do my best to handle all the questions, and hopefully Nick will be able to come back next week and everything. But since Nick is always here out of the graciousness of his heart, on his free time, I'm always grateful of that. So completely understanding and appreciate that he has a life and has some things to get to from time to time for sure. I just always appreciate the time that he's able to give all of us here. Almost on time, Casey Harold. I rolled in at like 7:01. I thought I might actually get started early tonight. Then I wanted to dot a couple of I's, cross a couple of T's, going over just some of the issues of the day, making sure I hadn't missed anything. Jalen Royals, Ashton Gelati signed their rookie contract. So Chiefs have their rookie class just about done and signed. Almost everybody I think is in the fold now. So no real surprises. Doesn't seem like anything has been too tricky. Haven't seen the official numbers yet on Royals and Gelati, but obviously there's not a lot of room for negotiations these days in the NFL contracts and for the rookies. So we'll probably expect too many surprises in there. Should just be par for the course. Surprisingly, we are 24 hours out from the NFL schedule release, and we only know one thing about the Chiefs' schedule. The NFL has been clamping down on leaks. Maybe there will be a few more on Wednesday. We will find out a couple of things Wednesday. Good Morning Football has some announcements I think they're going to be following up with on Wednesday. I think I'm trying to remember. Nick's my guy on making sure that I've got everything straight with what's coming out tomorrow. Like CBS, Netflix, and YouTube are doing their announcements tomorrow. I think YouTube is in the afternoon, like 3:30. That's when we are expecting to get the news on who will play the Chargers in Week 1 in Brazil, Sao Paulo. That should be when that announcement gets made. We're obviously expecting the Chiefs to be the opponent in that one, but suppose there always could be a surprise. The only thing we know for certain at this point, Week 17, Chiefs and Broncos at Arrowhead on Christmas night, Thursday night. Expect that to be a fun one for sure. Tough on folks who will be at the game, working the game, anything like that. Short days with their families, but Christmas football, always a lot of fun. And even though I was only 2 months old, I guess I've always had like kind of an affinity for Christmas football because this will tell you exactly how old I was. I've been told by my mother that I did at least watch a little bit of the Christmas Day 1971 Chiefs Dolphins playoff game, the longest game in NFL history, went into double overtime. Jan Stenerud missed a couple of chances to win that game and knock off the Dolphins and send the Chiefs to, I guess that was the divisional game, if I'm not mistaken. So that would have been the AFC Championship game the following week with a chance to go to another Super Bowl. Was not meant to be. But one of the greatest games in NFL history. Like I said, I was just 2 months old, but apparently I watched some of it. I guess it must have rubbed off on me because I've always had an affinity for Christmas football. Obviously, got some news today coming out of Missouri on the stadium side of the equation. Looks like the Missouri is going to be putting together somewhat competitive bid with Kansas and what they're able to do. Bonds that would provide about $500 million to stadium projects, possibly for either the Royals or Chiefs or both, as the case may be. Looks like tax increment financing that would be used. The House passed it very quickly today. This is all being shoehorned in at the last minute, last week of the session in Missouri, to try and see if what they can get done. Like I said, the House already passed it as is, with an amendment that just broadened the money a little bit to makes it so that wouldn't be limited to just Major League Baseball and National Football League, but could also be used for the NHL. If the Blues ever wanted to, you'd be able to use that money in St. Louis. If there's ever an opportunity to attract an NBA team to Missouri, it could be used for that. Looks like there's some politics just behind the scenes in Jefferson City. Sounds like the Missouri Senate, from friends that I've spoken to in Jefferson City, at least covering things there, that there may be some Senate House battles as far as Senate not being real happy with maybe the speed at which the House did everything today and kind of dumping it off and then adjourning for the day. So there's a little bit of difficulty in that. Sounds like there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Legislators in Missouri have until Friday to get this done. At this point, if the Senate just picks up what the House did, they could sign it. It already has the backing of the governor, so that should not be an issue. But Senate and the House in Missouri General Assembly have until Friday to hammer all of those details out and get something done. We will see if that happens. And if that doesn't happen, it doesn't come about, you're pretty much all of a sudden left with Kansas as the only game in town. I mean, there's some obviously things that maybe some localities in Missouri could do. I think there's Kansas City, Jackson County, Clay County. There's some places in Missouri that even on their own, I think would probably try to put together a proposal to keep the Royals at least in Missouri. The state not contributing in some way would hurt those measures quite a bit. There does sound like the Senate needs to find some votes for this proposal. Right now, doesn't sound like that there are enough votes in the Missouri Senate to pass it, but that can sometimes just grease the skids. I'm sure there's some minds that can be swayed with the right lobbying and the right approaches. So we'll see what happens on the political side in Jefferson City. Anybody else have any questions? Fire up. I might not go the full 2 hours tonight. We'll just see what the questions are with the missing Nick tonight. We'll might limit the questions. Who knows? I know there's usually some things that you have specifically for Nick. Hopefully you'll be able to join us back again next week. But if we do go short tonight, one of the reasons why is that I am planning to do a live discussion tomorrow night, starting at 7 for the schedule release. So for those of you maybe watch this later, want to know, was disappointed, maybe you can't make it live on Tuesdays, we're going to be live on Wednesday, and I will be taking everybody's questions to talk about the schedule. Might have some questions for all of you to throw some things out there, see what you like and don't like about the schedule. You can come on in here, we can talk about it and discuss it, and maybe I'll see if I can get some guests to pop in and maybe give you their thoughts too. Don't want to make any promises I can't keep, but we'll try, see what happens. Other than that, it's all up to you. So fire away with your questions, and we will have at it tonight. And first up, Dog, is there someone that you think could have a very unexpectedly good season, like Pro Bowl level type season? I think Kareem Hunt will have 1,000 yards this year. Pacheco traded at the deadline. Hey, a running back breaking through in the backfield for the Chiefs would not surprise me at all. I tell you what, if you told me that the Chiefs had 1,000-yard rusher this year, though, Dog, I think I'd bet on Brashard Smith. I mean, it's a young man's game, and we've seen it before, and I think the difficult thing about anybody in the Chiefs backfield is that I don't know at the beginning of the year that, there's going to be a standalone starter. I think it's going to end up being a backfield by committee again. There's going to be times that maybe Kareem gets, especially early in the season, barring any injuries, anything changes. I think Kareem's going to get his touches. Pacheco's going to get his touches. I think Brashard Smith obviously makes this team. Elijah Mitchell could make this team too. There's other possibilities. Chiefs have thrown some numbers at that spot. So I think it's going to be tough for anybody in that backfield to get the traction to get to 1,000. It's possible though. I mean, I like the way you're thinking, and Kareem, I think at this point for me with Kareem, it's just, I don't know if he can handle enough of the workload to get to 1,000. I think he just had to be super productive on a small number of carries, like, averaging 6 yards a carry, on 200 touches, kind of spread out a little bit more than he got last year. Might be tough. Just that Kareem's age and with the miles and just the type of runner that he is. But I tell you what, I mean, if anybody comes in, whether it's Isaiah, whether it's Kareem, Rashard Smith, anybody comes in and can establish themselves as the dominant running back from the beginning of the season, um, I think they got a chance. So we'll see if they vary it up a little bit. If it's not the running back by committee that they've been using for a while, if one of these guys can stand out and get the bulk of the carries, I think they need that. I mean, I really do. I think that they need that to kind of jumpstart this offense a little bit and just get one guy rolling and going. We'll see if anything can happen. As far as, who's kind of my unexpected guy that could have a Pro Bowl type season, it's a good question. And Nick and I talked a little bit about X Factor kind of guys and his ripple effect players on 41 is the mic on Sunday. So if you haven't listened to that after the scheduled talk, that was a good discussion. There's a bunch of them for me. I mean, if you're unexpected Pro Bowl level type season, man, I'm willing to at this point maybe jump on a Noah Gray type train, not because I'm expecting anything less than Travis Kelce, but Noah last year started showing he could come through a little bit. Hey, does Noah have like a 800-yard season in him? Maybe. And with Travis probably going to be playing fewer snaps and you would expect fewer touches, I think the ball needs to go somewhere, and it doesn't matter. I mean, Andy Reid's offense is still going to go through a tight end. So, and even though I like the young tight ends they've got, especially if Jared Wiley's healthy, Noah Gray might be the guy that finally breaks through. I mean, I think the receivers positions could be really interesting. I mean, they could get a Pro Bowl receiver out of that room, whether it's Worthy, whether it's Rice, whether it's Hollywood Brown. I think any one of those could have a breakout season and be a Pro Bowl type player. So I think there's some options there, dog. And we haven't even gotten into, what would you say if Jalen Moore was a Pro Bowl type player? He's certainly got a possibility. He's going to get a chance to show himself, and he's been good when he's played in the past. So and if he plays well at left tackle for the Chiefs, he's going to get attention. So never know. Dylan, do you think the Chiefs will grab a defensive tackle, a run stuffer, or are they all set? I still think that defensive tackle is the one place where they still need a body. I mean, maybe they're higher on Fabian Lovett and some guys that we haven't seen. Omar Norman Lotto and throw into that conversation. If you just for me, it's just like looking at the snaps and looking at the players that you expect to get work, how much they're going to get work this year, how much they've had in the past for the veterans. I mean, I don't think that Jerry Tillery is going to be like a full-time starter. Mike Pennell is not necessarily a full-time starter. So, I don't think Omar Norman Lott, I think it's a lot to ask him to go from, the 235 snap level that he's been at to, being a 600 snap level. That's a big jump. I mean, it's a little bit like, if you talk about starting pitchers in baseball and stretching them out, football players are a little bit the same way. And having a big leap in that snap count, I think it would definitely affect Omar Norman Lott's productivity, and I don't think that the Chiefs want to affect it that much. I mean, I think they're gonna try and ramp him up, but I just don't know how far you can ramp him up in 1 year. You take all that in the factors, and you look at this roster, and and certainly if there are any injuries, any issues, I still don't know for sure who's the starter next to Chris Jones. The reality may be that. Maybe it's multiple guys. Maybe Omar Norman Lott's going to start a handful of games. Maybe Mike Pennell will start a handful. Maybe Jerry Tillery. Maybe somebody else will start a couple of games next to Chris Jones. That's kind of how they've been the last couple of years with, Derrick Nottie starting some, Mike Pennell starting some, just basically whoever that starter is next to Chris Jones, depending on the team, the matchup, what their play call is on the first snap more than anything affects who that starter is, and they're going to rotate through. And if that's the reality, maybe they are going to ride and stick with what they have. I'm not sure they've got the depth at that position to handle some injuries, so that's why I still think that bringing in another veteran is likely. Does it have to be a run stuffer? I mean, if it was a true one tech, it'd be great. And maybe Marlon Tuipulotu is going to be that guy. Now that he's going to be here for a full off season, maybe the Chiefs do have the bodies that they need. But, it still just kind of screams out to me that if there's one spot where you could still bring in a veteran, defensive tackle in particular is that spot for me, Dylan. Chris, should the Chiefs and Bears meet in the Super Bowl with the Pope, the President, and Taylor Swift all be in attendance? Darn good question. Yeah, I don't know. Pope's never been to a Super Bowl before, so I guess there's a first for everything. I guess there's a pretty good chance we've seen the other two, so that's a pretty good chance of that could happen. That would be quite the Super Bowl appearance there, Chris. Yeah, would be. I had not heard of that thought before, that trio. So I tell you what, it'd be interesting to see. Although I would not want to be in the security line getting in. I have to be there first in line if so I would definitely have to be getting there early. I would definitely get there early in that case. Rob, what's up? I would really like to see KC add 1 to 2 more pieces on offense and defense. Nick Chubb, Justin Simmons, Trey Hendrickson, a vet left guard just in case Kingsley it doesn't work out. I'll put it by it mildly. Hey, Rob, bring in anybody at this point. Especially if it's a veteran, it's going to be cheap. Yes, Trey Hendrickson, that's a tough one to squeeze in. The cost, both in draft picks and money, probably a little bit too difficult to make that swing. Hey, if Nick Chubb and Justin Simmons wanted to come in on some vet-friendly deals, don't think you'd have any problems getting those guys signed up, getting the Chiefs signed up. I think they'd certainly be interested. Just, hey, if are they to the point where their career where that they just going to go ring shopping? If they do, Chiefs should absolutely be on their list. Chubb might be more difficult because it is starting to become a crowded backfield, even though the Chiefs have questions at every one of those spots. You don't know health-wise, where's Isaiah Pacheco? Age-wise, where's Kareem Hunt? Experience-wise, where is Rashard Smith? Health-wise, where's Elijah Mitchell? There's questions all across the board. So, but at the same time, the Chiefs have like 5 or 6 running backs that I like. They won't work out, but they've got a lot of bodies there. So I don't know if there's a spot for a Nick Chubb. Justin Simmons is interesting. The Chiefs could absolutely use some veteran presence at that spot. And I know Mike Edwards a little bit about, I think why you bring him in. Justin Simmons is a different kind of cat though. There might be an argument, as far as age, just, what his expectations are, what the Chiefs would need. Hey, I don't know that. I'll be honest. Even at left guard, I think that the Chiefs have. I don't know that, and I've said this. I think I said this on 41 as the mic kind of on Sunday. There's a couple of spots, and left tackle, and left guard are one of those for me where I think the die is cast. I'm just not sure that there's anybody out there that's realistically available who can come in and give you a lot more for the Chiefs than what you have. Yes, the Chiefs have questions. They've got numbers at both those spots. And I'd just be surprised if the Chiefs felt like they needed to bring anybody, unless they get into the OTAs here in the next couple of weeks, and they just feel like, wait a minute, this is not working out. Kingsley is struggling. Mike Caliendo is struggling. Hunter Norzad is struggling. And even though his name has not been mentioned, I still think Hunter Norzad's the sleeper as maybe the starter at left guard. I think he could end up being I think long term I think could be better than anybody else that they have at the left guard spot. It's just going to be maybe a little bit of, can he overcome the inertia that the Chiefs have towards plugging in Kingsley at that spot? I think Kingsley, as long as he is serviceable to above serviceable, he can probably win that position because second round pick, they liked him really, they want him to succeed. So I feel like a Hunter Norzad's probably going to have to come in and outplay him to win that spot. And obviously he's got to climb over Mike Caliendo too. So he's the dark horse in that spot, but I think they're okay there. And even at left tackle, even if Jalen Moore struggles, even if Josh Simmons isn't ready, even if Wanya Morris, isn't quite what you're hoping for, not ready with an Ethan Driscoll, you're not wanting to move Jawan Taylor. There's a lot of bodies that the Chiefs could and might have to go through at that left tackle spot. I'm just not sure if the solution is out there. It's just once again, it's a tough position to fill. And unless a veteran, an affordable veteran, were to become available, I feel like the Chiefs are just going to have to go forward with what they have. And, and they've, at least Brett Veach has given themselves some numbers. That's what he said, back at the combine, was that, they felt like they needed to put some numbers at that spot because, necessarily going out and finding the guy and getting the guy. I mean, Ronnie Stanley never hit the market, getting that one particular element. Let's face it, it's finding a left guard to come in and just be a guaranteed solution. There's few and far of those players out there. So what Brett Veach said he was going to do, he said he was going to go out and throw numbers at this problem. Well, they've done that. So now you just need for some of those numbers to work out and, piece it together. And it may not be the permanent solution. And Josh Simmons, you're hoping, is the permanent solution. And if that's the case, even if Josh Simmons isn't the answer for 25, he could certainly be the answer for 26 and beyond. So for this year, yeah, like I said, I just don't know if there's a surefire solution out there. Maybe a little bit more at left guard, but again, I feel like that with the numbers that the Chiefs have put at that spot, I think they're going to find a solution that they're comfortable with. Chris, with Pete Rose and shoeless Joe Jackson now eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame, is it not time for the promised Football Hall of Fame voting rant episode by you? I guess I could do it tonight, Chris, because Nick's not here and everything. So I guess I could do it. I haven't necessarily done my research and everything that I want to put into it, but I mean, okay, here's the thing, and I want to be fair because there are some really good people that are on the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee, and the fact that the process is broken is not necessarily their fault. I believe that there are some people on that list who are maybe past their prime, maybe they're not as invested in the game as much as they could and should be. But is it the process itself that's broken? Yes, absolutely is. Because, I mean, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is one of the more difficult Hall of Fames to get into, period. I mean, when you're talking about the number of players that are on the field, the positions on the field, number of players on a roster, and you're letting in a max of 7 players a year, that's just crazy. I mean, and then when you have incomplete classes like they did this year, and you are leaving out players who belong in the Hall of Fame, and then you get people who are on these selection committees, the selection committee that talk about, stacking and the process and how you got to let this person in before you let that person in. No. I mean, a player is either a Hall of Fame eligible or not. And it should be a straight up or down vote. If you're going to have a rule that says you should only let 7 players in a year, maybe it's not ideal to me. I mean, I mean, but one, you should be letting 7 players in. The fact that they're not putting all full 7 players in right now tells you that this whole stacking thing is nonsensical, idiotic, because it's not happening. And the idea that you need to put in one receiver before you put in another, you need to have one offensive tackle go in before another. No, I mean, if players aren't getting any better or worse, they either belong in the Hall of Fame or they don't. And the idea that your vote could change year to year is just nonsensical to me. It doesn't add up. And I feel like 90% of these problems with the process would be eliminated by complete transparency. Right now, I mean, if they want to keep the discussions and what gets said in that room private, but then again, go back to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Baseball Hall of Fame has its problems, but it's got a couple of things going for it. And one is that there's no smoke-filled room that all the baseball writers get into to decide who's going to go in the Hall of Fame and who's is not. That's exactly what happens. It's a smoke-filled Zoom, but they just get together and they talk about, I don't know what there's to talk about. I don't know what the debate is. If you can't look at the players and look at their careers and having watched them, if you can't make up a decision about whether or not that player belongs in the Hall of Fame, then I don't know what you're doing in being a part of a group that decides that. Nothing that gets said should influence you in your decision on that player. And a great example was, of course, this year with the candidate from the Chiefs that Jim Tyre. which, you know, I mean, there should be no discussion. You look at Jim Tyre's numbers. Jim Tyre belongs in the Hall of Fame. There was an off the field reason why Jim Tyre wasn't. It was tragic. It was awful, and I get it. It's certainly impacting his inclusion at the time. And the fact that the NFL and the fact that the Pro Football Hall of Fame has a rule that just simply says that you decide about whether or not these players are going to go into the Hall of Fame. Your decision is based entirely what happens on the field. That what happens off the field is not a factor. Fact that you've got that rule, I mean, it should be a part of the email that you send out to everybody with their ballot. Just say, hey, remember, here are the rules of the parts of the selection process. But you also then have this idiotic meeting of the minds that they all have to go through and sit down and debate about. Once again, if you have to have that kind of discussion, then you don't know enough about the people that you're voting on to have a Pro Football Hall of Fame vote. If that's what you need to decide who's going into the Hall of Fame, you need to give up your vote to somebody who will do the work, who will commit themselves to the process, who watches the game enough, who knows about the history of the game to make those decisions without having to have somebody else spoon feed it and break it down for them. So if you are one of those electors that have that, then you need to give up your vote. And if you're telling me that you don't need that, then why do you have the Zoom in the first place? The other thing, I started talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. The two things that they've got going for them is that, one, you've got 500 plus electors, I think it is, in the Baseball Hall for the Baseball Writers Association for Cooperstown. And you know what? Any 1, 2, 3, 12 people who have outlier views, that's not going to affect the candidacy of any one player. I mean, you're talking about 75% to get in. You have to have more than 100 people who have an outlier viewpoint for a player not to make it in the Hall of Fame. And that can still happen. I get it. I mean, there's still players that come close. And once again, I mean, I still go back to the fact that a player doesn't get any better. And if players are on this ballot for what? The Baseball Hall of Fame for 10 years. I don't understand why, other than the fact that I know you're limited to 10 choices. And if you're maxing out your 10 choices every year, and therefore when one of those guys falls off and then you're adding another one to your 10, okay, then you're off the hook. But if you leave somebody off and you're only putting 5 names in every year, and all of a sudden in the 7th year, you're like, okay, well, this guy's waited long enough, we'll put him in. No, once again, you didn't get any better. You were either a Hall of Famer the moment you're retired or you're not. I have to get a drink when you're in the middle of my rant. Chris, you pushed my button. This is the second time somebody's pushed my button today. My other time was talking about the NFL schedule and the fact that it's the world's biggest non-event. Just put out the freaking schedule, for crying out loud. But number one thing I would do is every Pro Football Hall of Fame voter put their name next to whom they voted for and how they voted. If they did that, you would all of a sudden clean up 90% of the problems, because some of these people would now be shamed by the awful, awful decisions that they make, and either would be forced to give up their vote or forced to make better choices. So that would take care of a vast majority of it. 2, I'd get rid of this Zoom, this meeting, this nonsense. If you need that to make your decisions, you don't deserve a vote. And once again, your lack of knowledge or commitment to the process or a willingness to do the homework would be exposed by your ballot. The whole thing needs a complete and total overhaul. So I think it's a fairly easy fix. And I get it. I hate, there's nothing more that I generally hate about sports than people who are outsiders who come in and say that they can fix everything. I really dislike soccer. I am not the world's biggest soccer fan. So I'm the last person that anybody should listen to when it comes to fixing soccer, because I could give you 40 ideas about how to fix soccer. True soccer fans, then there's billions of them around the world, don't care about what I think. They don't care what soccer would have to do to become appealing to me. They want to keep soccer the way it is because they like it. They don't want to make it more appealing. And I'm not sure there is a way to make soccer more appealing. I mean, there is a way to make soccer more appealing. And I think that's generally give people sticks and a puck and put it on ice, because hockey is infinitely more exciting than soccer. But that's just me. So long story short, too late. That's my Cliff's Notes version. I could, with some time and everything, Chris, I could absolutely give you a pinpoint, even a PowerPoint presentation on how to fix the Pro Football Hall of Fame voting process. But fresh air and transparency would be the number one way to go about it. Black Magic. Everything I've heard is that Josh Simmons is ahead of schedule. What have you seen so far? I mean, I would classify him ahead of schedule because, when you're talking about a patella tendon rupture and repair recovery, I mean, he is at this point 4, 5, 6, maybe close to 7 months out. I guess October to now would be just about 7 months. He was, I think, injured into the 12th, so she's probably just shy of 7 months on that recovery. And yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, I would consider him to be ahead of schedule. There's still a ways to go. I mean, he's, from what I saw during rookie minicamp, I don't think he's a guy who's ready to go out there and start having contact right now. So if training camp started tomorrow, I think he'd be on the sideline. I think there's a reasonable chance that when training camp gets here in mid-July, that he's still on the sideline, that he's in the media tent, that he's working off on his own. He's on the NFI list to begin things. But when I first heard that he had a torn patella tendon and, suffered the injury in mid-October, my thought process was, okay, well, this kid's probably not going to be medically cleared for football activities until maybe mid-October of 2025. And at that point, you need even more recovery time because you are not yourself. I mean, I unfortunately confess to that from having 2 torn patella tendons, but I don't base it on my experience because I'm not a professional athlete. But I've seen enough of these players and have done enough of the research into the topic that you're just not going to be yourself. And so that's why I say, I mean, Josh Simmons who can be a franchise left tackle, you're not going to see on the field until July of 2026. That's just the reality. Anything you get of Josh Simmons this year, he's not going to be 100% of what he can be. So, that's why I tapped the brakes a little bit on him. So being ahead of schedule, it's great because, one, it's a heck of a lot better than being behind schedule, definitely. So the fact that he's in, right now and he's doing some work, he's on the field, seems to be moving around well. Those were all great things because there's a lot of players who right now in their recovery from a patella tendon, might just be barely getting on the field. They might not be, running, and we don't know the full range of what Simmons has been doing. I mean, he certainly looks like he's in good shape. Is he in 100% football shape? I would guess not. And certainly the Chiefs were taking things a little ginger with him in that rookie minicamp. But I, at least from what I've seen, he's ahead of schedule from what I expected, which I had probably the most conservative expectations on Josh Simmons around. So meeting my low expectations is great. And I mean, I think he's now is he meeting the highest expectations as what he could be? He might be. I mean, I think even from what the Chiefs were talking about and what I was getting from different people leading up to the rookie minicamp, I mean, it was the gamut, from he's not going to be doing anything to the minicamp to he might, do some stretching. He might do a little bit of things to, and I think from what we saw at the minicamp was probably on the high end of the expectations of what even the Chiefs thought he might be able to do. Now let's see what happens during OTAs. If he steps back during OTAs and does less than he did during the rookie minicamp, that doesn't worry me. That would not be a concern whatsoever. If he's doing anything beyond stretching during OTAs, I think that's a great sign because that's a sign right there that the Chiefs will probably not be starting him on NFI. Now, will it mean that they're still going to take it pretty easy with him and not try and rush him? Yeah, I mean, I certainly get the sense that the Chiefs want to make sure that they are pacing him and not moving too quickly. Would that be affected by what Jalen Moore's doing and how he looks? It could certainly, but I think he's looked pretty good, Black Magic. So I would have no complaints if I'm the Chiefs right now. I mean, we'll see what happens, but from what I've heard and what I have seen, yes, I think he's ahead of schedule. Jesus, Chiefs still Brazil bound. That's the word, Jesus. I mean, it's been bantered about now for a couple of weeks that's where they were headed. I see no reason to believe otherwise. So nobody else has been rumored to be going to Brazil. Obviously, we know the Chargers are, and so you're limited right there to the 9 teams that are playing the Chargers this year at home. Chiefs are one of them, so one of 9. I think the chances are a lot better than that. I mean, I think that it's pretty much a done deal. The Chiefs are going to Brazil. That would most likely, looking at what the NFL has done in the past and certainly last year, both the teams that played in that Friday game in Brazil played at home in week 2. So I think you can bet on the Chiefs being at home in week 2, which, I mean, that's at least a nice, guarantee that if you're going to play on that Friday in Brazil, you've got the travel. Not a huge time difference, but the travel is a big deal. Being able to go down to Brazil early if you need to. I mean, I would imagine the conjecture I was hearing from the Chiefs side of things is that by playing on a Friday, they would probably do something, even without a big time difference, very similar to what they did in Germany, which would probably be heading, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, so Thursday game or Friday game, Thursday, so probably going on Tuesday, like after practice Tuesday, traveling to Brazil, doing a practice on Wednesday. Thursday's your off day, prep day, Friday play. So then you can come back immediately after the game on Friday. And you're back for the weekend and got a couple of extra days of rest before you get into week 2. So, I mean, it's a good schedule from that standpoint. And, being week 1, you can travel early and afford to do that. If the Chiefs wanted to go down earlier than Tuesday, they could. So no real backbreaker there. But yep, Jesus, until we hear differently tomorrow, which I think with YouTube scheduled to do their announcement at about 3:30, I'm guessing that is when we will find out whether or not the Chiefs are the team. I guess it's technically not official yet that YouTube has won the bid for that game, but that is the conjecture. And I know that Nick and I heard earlier today that if that game, if it does end up on YouTube, it would still end up on local TV as well. So if you are in the Kansas City viewing area, you'd still have access to that game over the air or on your cable system through one of the local channels. So just like any other national game that ends up on an ESPN or anything like that. So Aaron, is there any chance Glendon Miller can make the 90-man roster, or did he end up with a different team? And I am just looking up because all these names sometimes run together for me. Let's see. Sorry. And my typing is not going well. Let's see. No, he's still around. Excuse me, losing my voice a little bit there. Old sinus is popping up. Yeah, he is still around. I mean, there's a chance. Now, the Chiefs did sign a tryout safety because they felt like they needed another free safety option. I mean, Miller, he's in the mix. I mean, I can't tell you a whole lot at this point about his chances. Obviously, he was out there during the rookie mini camp, so I saw him. Can't really say that I can give you an in-depth scouting report at this point, but just based on what I saw at the rookie mini camp. Let me take a look here and see. And yeah, I mean, I was looking at his number in my notes to see if I can scramble to remember. There wasn't anything outstanding that I just jotted down. Made me think, okay, hey, this is the guy to watch and everything like that. So I didn't do anything to stand out. Didn't do anything that also at the same time put him down for a negative. So I didn't have any minuses on Glendon Miller. So I would say at this point, hey, 2 days I've seen of rookie minicamp is not enough to make a decision. So we'll find out more, Aaron, when they get to St. Joe and get to look at everybody a little bit closer and get more looks and everything. But he is still with the Chiefs, still around, still available. Joe, Dome Stadium. I would certainly assume that it's going to, if a new stadium for the Chiefs would absolutely include a retractable dome. I mean, if you're building a dome stadium in this day and age, and in particular, I mean, in Kansas City, you want options. I mean, I get, and Clark Hunt's big on this too. I mean, he's an old school football throwback. I mean, he prefers outdoor football. So I think the idea of, playing in a dome in January frustrates Clark a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, I don't think they would want a repeat of what happened in the Dolphins playoff game a few years ago, where that was life-threatening cold. I mean, obviously, people lost their digits in that game, and nobody wants that. So, but more importantly than any of the football aspect of it is that you got a dome stadium. It's a 365-day event venue, and now it puts you in conversations. I mean, yeah, the NFL has always said that if you build a dome, they will come, and you put yourself in conversations for a Super Bowl. Whether it's guaranteed or not, might not be the same as it was, 10, 15 years ago when there was the talk of putting in a dome stadium here. Although I do think that, the evidence is that if you build a dome stadium, the NFL is going to give you a serious chance at a Super Bowl. More importantly for Kansas City, you build a dome stadium, it gives you a chance at a Final Four, and I think that's a bigger deal for Kansas City, almost as big of a deal, perhaps. I don't think anything is as big as a Super Bowl, but it would be just as big for Kansas City to host a Final Four, maybe even more than one Final Four. I mean, that opens up the doors, and I can tell you, from my former days in public relations as well and traveling around. The benefits of dome stadiums and what they can do as a convention attraction is huge. Now, I mean, some of that would be helped if you have a convention center next door or in the area, and maybe that will end up happening. If the Chiefs go out to Wyandotte County and go out to the Legends, maybe they'll end up building a convention hotel. I mean, that's, they built a convention center next to the Dome in St. Louis, and hey, they still use the Edward Jones Dome for conventions in St. Louis. I mean, even though they haven't had a football team in years, they still use that for big events, and they get, international events in St. Louis that Kansas City doesn't, simply because that they've got such an incredible space, and they've got a big dome stadium that they can use for these events that require bigger crowds, bigger audiences. I mean, sometimes they want to throw in concerts, and hey, T-Mobile is nice, but it's not a football stadium. It's not got that kind of crowd, so it limits as far as just the size of events that you can host. So, I would assume that anything that the Chiefs build, I'm assuming it's going to have a retractable dome at the very, very least. Finally tuned, Kelce has lost weight. Thoughts? I'm chuckling a little bit only because last week, I think the tabloid rumor was that Kelce had gained like 20 pounds. And now this week, the rumors are that he's lost weight. I mean, I try not to read too much into it because this time of year is notorious for the storyline of so-and-so is in the best shape of his career. You're going to hear more of that between now and the beginning of training camp in late July than anything else. You're going to hear that probably about a half dozen players. So-and-so is in the best shape of their life. Travis Kelce's in the best shape of his life. I don't know if the weight was a huge issue for Travis. I mean, he's always been fairly trim. If he lost some weight, I'm sure it'd benefit him as far as a little bit of, speed, a little bit of burst, make him feel a little bit lighter. At the same time, his I don't even want to call it bulk. I mean, his maybe density, his strength, whatever you want to call it, has always helped him. So, I don't see how it's a downside. Finally tuned. I mean, it's got to be an upside. But let's wait until we see Travis, see how he's feeling, everything. I mean, I would assume it's Travis. I mean, he always takes himself fairly seriously, so he's always in good shape. That's never been an issue with Travis or anything like that. So, if he feels the need to lose a little bit of weight for this season at his age, I get it. I mean, like I said, it should certainly help him from a quickness standpoint. And if that's what he felt like he was missing last year, and this helps him compensate for that a little bit, then it's the right decision for him. We'll just see how it works out. Alex, do you think Andy Reid holds Mahomes back from being his 2018 self? This is kind of like is this the only coach that was able to hold Michael Jordan under 20 points was Dean Smith. I really don't think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why maybe that Mahomes hasn't had that 2018 magic since. I mean, obviously he's been really good, just putting up those numbers. And one of them for sure is because he had to. I mean, the number of games in which Mahomes put up spectacular numbers simply because he had to are things he doesn't have to do anymore. I mean, if anything, I think you could probably say Steve Spagnuolo does more to hold back Patrick Mahomes than Andy Reid does, because Spags doesn't give up as many points and yards as they were giving up in 2018. That incredible game he had against the Rams, he had to, because if they didn't go up and down the field, they scored 51 points and lost. I mean, they had too many games like that. And some of it was certainly no team had a scouting report. Nobody was ready for Mahomes. Nobody knew what he could do. Nobody was ready for that. Even when teams saw the first few games on the schedule and were like, okay, hey, this kid's good, but, hey, he's a rookie. He's basically a rookie, second-year player. I mean, he's off to just a hot start. He can't be as good as he looks on film. And then they find out he's actually better than probably he looked on film. So, he doesn't sneak up on anybody anymore. Hey, are there mistakes that the Chiefs make as far as, preparation goes, or maybe game planning goes? There's always a possibility. Are there mistakes that Mahomes makes? I mean, that was kind of the thought behind what, Brett Veach kind of said at the combine when, he said that Patrick has just kind of seen so much that maybe he sees things that defenses aren't doing to him anymore. There could be some of that, it's Patrick that's maybe changed his thought process a little bit. And maybe 2 years ago, getting victimized by the interceptions off the drops, forced him to maybe be a little bit more circumspect last year than maybe he was a couple of years ago. I mean, that's why I feel like that having Gardner Minshew in that quarterback room, I think could actually be a really good thing for Mahomes, because there might be some plays now that maybe Gardner Minshew is going to look at this and say, hey, this guy was open for you. I mean, for 90% of the guys in the league, this guy wasn't open. For you, this guy was open. Why didn't you throw the ball there? Maybe puts that little bit more of that gunslinger in him. Maybe Andy Reid needs to change some things to put some more of that gunslinger in him. I think to a large degree, though, we just kind of maybe get a little bit selfish as just far as just appreciating what Mahomes is able to do, because I still see it on a week-to-week basis. And I know every game I'm going to see this kid do something that I haven't seen another quarterback do. And he still does that. And, has he been limited at times by maybe the talent and the execution around him? Sure. Has he been limited by his own decisions at times? Probably. I mean, I think the difference between Patrick Mahomes in 2018 and Patrick Mahomes now, like I said, I mean, I think more of it is necessity than anything else. If that defense that year hadn't given up points at the rate that it did, Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have thrown for 5,000 yards. He had to throw for 5,000 yards that year. He had to throw for 50 touchdowns that year. Chiefs haven't had to do that since, and yet he's had 2 more MVP seasons. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I still think that I think he has had at least a couple of seasons, Patrick has, that were better than 2018. It's just that he had really good numbers in 2018. That's just the craziness about him. But I think that also goes back to the circumstances being more than anything else. The fact that teams weren't really ready for him. They didn't know what to expect. Even later in the season, teams saw things on film that they just didn't trust, didn't know, and didn't trust their eyes to know how good he was going to be. Pano, what in the world is the fascination about keeping Sky and Justin Ross? They've been proven to be nothing but practice squad talent. Can't the Chiefs waive them and open up 2 spots of workable talent? First of all, Pano, and since Nick isn't here, I'm going to give you kudos, because that was a question. I mean, clearly a question. So you would not have been penalized by Nick this week. So I want to give you that. I mean, I think part of the fascination with both these guys is that there's talent there. There absolutely is. With Sky, it's just maybe just been tapping into it a little bit. Hey, has it always been maybe square peg, round hole, wrong place, wrong time for Sky? Entirely possible. He's had some bad luck. The injuries haven't helped. So I want to give Sky as much of the benefit of the doubt as I can. I think he's and probably also been a victim of the fact that the Chiefs have tried to keep as many guys around, which has probably meant that it's just been too many guys that keep fresh, too many guys that continue to develop and give their chances. Maybe, having carried one fewer receiver at times would have been better for the entire group. Justin Ross, I mean, the physical tools and talent is another reason why. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, the guy has a size and athleticism that's special. You see him do things on a practice field that a lot of guys can't do. That's the catch, though, is that he's had a hard time transferring that from the practice field to the game days. And he's a likable kid and all, but I've not entirely always understood the fascination that the Chiefs seem to have with Justin sometimes, just because. And now at the same point, I mean, he's been on the practice squad, so at times, so it's not just they've been keeping him on the 53 and protecting him or anything. He's also been on the practice squad, so. They've left that opportunity, where they could have lost him in the past, and haven't necessarily given him the most opportunities in the world. But why haven't they even taken other spots? I mean, I can't necessarily say. The only thing I think there's maybe three players that I would say that I wondered why the Chiefs did not give them more opportunities than they did with Justin Ross and Sky Moore. And two of them were, special teams kind of reasons. Last year I was kind of surprised they didn't go to Nico Remigio as early as they could have. I felt like he should have been maybe the return specialist on this team from week one. Nico's just, I thought he was the best returner on this team, clearly. From the beginning of the season. And I was kind of surprised that they did not go to him earlier and just kind of give him both that kick return and punt return role. They kind of tried to do some other things early, and I kind of understood why, but I thought it abundant to me back in training camp that he was the best return specialist on this team and needed to be in that spot. Eventually got there. And I thought the same thing about Montreal Washington a couple of years before that he was by far the best return specialist on this team. And they, utilized him from the practice squad a few times as far as some elevations go. And I think they called him up to the 53 at one point. I just don't know why he wasn't on the field for 17 games as a return specialist, because he was the best guy on the team in that role. And getting both those guys on the field on offense, I mean, I would like to have seen them get those opportunities too. I mean, once again, I saw Montreal Washington. Montreal Washington was one of the best ball trackers this team had in camp last year. I mean, he and Carson Wentz, they had a thing going. So, I mean, I would like to have seen Montreal Washington on the field with Patrick Mahomes. I would like to see him get his chances on offense. Didn't really understand that. And the other was Emir Smith-Marset. I mean, that's a guy that I would have kept on this team rather than trading to the Panthers. Obviously, he was going to be a borderline guy, and they were able to flip him and get a draft pick. So, worked out. I still would like to have seen what Emir Smith-Marset could have done in this offense. I mean, now neither one of these three you would say absolutely made the Chiefs argument no doubters. I mean, and that's part of it. If you're going to make the team and you're going to win a job and everything like that, you have to make it hard on the Chiefs. And maybe they just didn't do that well enough. But this is going to be the year. I mean, I have a hard time believing Justin Ross will make the 53. And I think Sky, he's right on the bubble. I mean, I think it's going to be tough for him too. I think it's an uphill climb, but I could also see both those guys sticking around, like to your point, on the practice squad. So, John, what What percentage do you think Missouri can retain the Chiefs? Is the Kansas offer over the top? I mean, and this is just purely by and large my opinion. I mean, it might be informed speculation, but at this point, just my opinion more than anything else. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for Missouri to keep both these teams. I think the Royals are a much better fit for Missouri than they are for the Kansas side, just based on the demographics of baseball and what works and what doesn't, and also what the Royals want and what they don't want. And you know, the Royals made it very clear, you know, from the very beginning of this process that they kind of want to be in a downtown baseball environment. I just don't think that the options on the Kansas side for that are as good as they are on the Missouri side. The Kansas downtown options would put a Royals ballpark in a less than ideal situation. And hey, I say this as a Clay County resident. You know, I'd love to see the Royals in Northtown, and so in North Kansas City. I think that would be I've thought for years that would be a great spot, and not that particular location. I always thought that, and I've processed with my friend Steven years ago. Now I know it's probably maybe not as clear an area as I think that it is, and would probably require a little bit of cleanup. But you know, there's some old industrial sites on just the north side of the river that if you could then you know have a pedestrian bridge to connect the Missouri side and connect the river market across the other side to a Royals ballpark on the north side of the river. And in this case, you know, kind of maybe caddy corner from where the current stadium is. I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, this stadium site in Northtown would be further. I mean, it would be more of a, you know, streetcar destination, but I would love to see that if Clay County, Jackson County, in this case, probably more North Kansas City and Kansas City, Missouri, since the streetcar is really most just a Kansas City, Missouri project. But if they could get together to have the transportation to make that work, I love it. I mean, I think it'd be great. I don't think that the Royals work as well in the Kansas side, whether it's in Wyandotte County or Johnson County. A suburban site that doesn't really interest me that much. I think the traffic would be a disaster and nightmarish, and wouldn't really appeal to me because I'd live 45 minutes away from it. So I'd be like, well, probably out of sight, out of mind. Centrally located Royals makes the most sense. For the Chiefs, I mean, I felt all along that it was going to be difficult for, just because of the situation and because of just the cost of these things and where they're at, and the fact that neither one of these teams are necessarily in the marketplace to be able to, you know, I'd love for the teams to pay their own way. It's just not the reality of things work, because if the states and the localities aren't willing to give these teams some subsidies to stay in this market, they have no reason to be in this. They have no reason to be here because there's somebody else who would give them the subsidies. And I don't want either one of these teams to move. So it's just kind of the cost of being a big league city. May not be what I want, may not be great, but it's just kind of the reality of the situation. And I think it's just tough in the current environment, the cost of stadiums for one state in a market our size to be able to retain both. So I think Kansas all along has wanted the Chiefs, felt like it was a better fit. I think it is a better fit. Missouri is a better fit for the Royals. I hope that the Royals stay in Missouri. I'd love to see the Chiefs. And as a lifelong Missourian, I'd love to see the Chiefs stay. I think that the offer that Kansas has for the Chiefs and their location, I think, is going to ultimately be superior to anything that Missouri can do. I think what Missouri's putting together for the Royals can certainly be competitive with what Kansas can do. And I know that Kansas thinks that they can pull them both off. I just don't know if they can. And I think there's ways for these teams, at least the Chiefs. I mean, like I said, I think that the Chiefs are going to go to Kansas. I mean, it seems like that's where the momentum is and where they could probably do the most and get the most done. At the same time, I mean, the Chiefs are also going to have a training facility, a brand new one. You're going to have a headquarters probably attached to it. Wouldn't be surprised if that's in Missouri. It's a way for them to kind of make both sides happy. And It's not going to be the same. I mean, having your training facility isn't the same as having a stadium, but it would still be a significant investment. And so I think it would be great if they can do that. It would be fantastic to be able to still keep a presence on both sides of the state line, because let's face it, I mean, I still feel like both these teams belong to both states. So I hope that, the Royals, I don't know if there's any way to really, other than the innovative idea of putting the stadium on state line, which I'm not terribly big of, because it is a little bit of a build up, we will come, they will come kind of philosophy, and those don't normally work. So end of the day, my bet, my percentage, I mean, I think it's pretty slim that Missouri can retain the Chiefs. I mean, I think it's less than 20%. So I think that's kind of how I felt all along. I think Chiefs end up in Kansas, Royals stay in Missouri. Some point, now that it's 8:00, I guess I should go lightning round just so I can get through everybody's questions and everything. Because if Nick were here, he would be going through and making sure that I know everything else that's going on. And oh my gosh, I just saw Eric's super chat, so I need to go to that real quick. Tell you what, I'm going to answer your question real quick, Chris, since I put that up there, and then Eric, I'm coming to you. Are you surprised to see the Vikings agree to having back-to-back games in Europe? Will the Chiefs be the next team up for that in 26? I was surprised about that, Chris, because even though the NFL has kind of given freedom to teams to volunteer to kind of fulfill their requirements earlier than was originally. It was flat out going to be, hey, every team's got to do their over their international duty, and once every team's done their international duty, then you're going to start rotating through again. And then the league said, well, you know what, if a team really wants to give up a road game and go overseas and wants to jump in front of somebody, maybe we'll let them do that. But then at the same time, they were like really hardcore about, hey, teams need to give up a home game. I haven't checked. So I don't remember if the Vikings have already done their international requirement in this new age and new era of this kind of rotation. If they haven't, and this is both those requirements in 1 year, it's something that maybe a lot of teams are going to consider doing going forward. I mean, Jacksonville's been doing it for years with playing 2 home games in London and staying in between and doing it that way. So it makes sense. The Chiefs, I think that once again, the difficult thing with the Chiefs is that, they're not going to have any problems doing their home games when they want to. I mean, whenever they've got 9 home games, they would love to, be able to raise their hand and play one of those internationally, because they want to build their brand in multiple markets. And let's face it, Brazil isn't even one of their markets. So they want to play in Spain. They want to play in Germany. They would not mind playing in England. Obviously, they've added the UK and Ireland. I mean, Dublin, I think, would absolutely be in their market as well as a place they'd like to play. So there's a bunch of places the Chiefs want to play. And at this point, I mean, Brazil, like I said, isn't even one of their international markets, but they'll play anywhere as long as if it's overseas and get the opportunity. The business side of the building will absolutely sign up for that anytime. I think that's the difficult thing, is that even for this year, Chris, it didn't appear for the longest time that the Chiefs were going to be playing internationally, because nobody wanted to give up a Chiefs game. The Chargers were the only team that was willing to. And I get the Chargers might be willing to give this up every year. I mean, the Chargers might be willing every 2 years for their home game. Maybe they will play the Chiefs because they just want to get the Chiefs out of Los Angeles and hope that they get a more neutral field overseas. It wouldn't. That's why I say. I mean, I think it's the problem the Chiefs will have will be finding a team that wants to give up a home game to move overseas against the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are such a draw right now. So that's the only challenge. So that could be the tough part of the equation. I think they might consider it, but I think Andy Reid would have to be talked into being told that it's a good idea. Eric with the super chat. Thank you very much, friend. What nose tackle could the Chiefs sign or trade for now? And let me look and see who is out there. I mean, the free agent market is pretty grim. And even matching up from a trade standpoint, because I mean, then you obviously run into that the fact that the Chiefs just don't have a ton of draft capital that they want to give up. So making a trade for a player that will make an impact, I think, is even more difficult. Oops. Disappear. Go to my free agent list here. D tackles, see who's available. And like you're even talking specifically like a nose and a true nose, which is even a little bit more difficult to find. Let's see. Go to the available list. And I probably won't even be wisely thinking about, some injury statuses and everything. I mean, Raekwon Davis is unsigned, but I feel like, is that I have to look on you guys because that's an injury situation, right? That's why Raekwon is still available. Let's see. I guess it doesn't necessarily specify that. I don't see an injury or anything. So, maybe that's. I mean, it's possible. I mean, that's an availability. I mean, he's young and everything. So, that's. I mean, the reason why he's at the top of the list, I suppose. Then you really get into. I mean. And I'm even looking at like the market value from a Spotrac. I mean, their most valuable defensive tackle right now that they have on the list is, like I said, maybe it must be an injury because Raekwon Davis is like shows no market value. So is there an injury there that I'm just not paying attention to? I'll scan. If somebody knows, feel free to throw it in the comments. I'll come back to that. Look on his injury list there. I don't see anything, so I'm not quite sure why. But I mean, short answer, there's nobody that really jumps out to me that's available. And if you're talking about an impact player that's available, once again, I mean, that's going to require draft capital. And and it's a non-premium position on top of that. So I think that, the Chiefs' willingness to trade for an interior defensive lineman, I think is pretty grim. I don't think there's a lot of interest there, Eric. The free agent market doesn't look great. I mean, unless a player becomes available, that is a free agent casualty, somebody loses a job that's a veteran that becomes available at the end of training camp. I mean, that's certainly, if you're the Chiefs, I think the kind of ballpark market that you're looking at right now. But I honestly don't think that there's anybody out there that I would say is the obvious solution. And that's one of the reasons why, I mean, the Chiefs have done what they've done so far. I mean, they brought in Jerry Tillery as one of their options. They drafted Omar Norman Lott because they just didn't like what was out there on the market. And, and obviously Norman Lott gives them a lot of upside, not just for this season, for going forward as well. And Justin talking about the defensive tackle from Detroit. And let me look up that situation and see. What is his contract situation? I assume you're talking about Chris Smith. I could be crazy. I mean, he's on like a minimum salary deal. I mean, a player like that, I mean, could be available. I mean, it would be pretty cheap. Like I said, I could be completely blanking that there's somebody else that you're talking about there. If it is, let me know, and I will try and scan forward and do a much better job of multitasking and reading. So if it's a different player you're talking about, I'll look up but again, I mean, that's just kind of the situation is just that there's not a lot available either, from a trade standpoint or a, free agent standpoint. So Chiefs are probably stuck a little bit there, but that's where you really do get in a training camp, and then you start looking at other rosters and you look at who are the release candidates that other teams have. Then maybe you've got somebody that matches up well there, or you can flip one player for a draft pick to another team and use that draft pick or similar capital to get a player from another team. I mean, I would fully expect that. I mean, especially if the Chiefs get into some injuries during training camp, that's exactly what they'll start doing is really looking at other teams and who might become available closer to the beginning of the season and um, with the waiver wire going into the season at the when you have the final cuts. Eric, is there any chance KC brings in Chubb for a workout? I mean, there's a chance, but I'll be honest. I mean, from what I've seen and what I've heard, I mean, I think the Chiefs are fairly comfortable with the backfield that they have as it is, because I think there's going to be a good player or two that doesn't make this team. I mean, they've thrown some numbers at this. I mean, obviously they still like Pacheco. Kareem, I mean, Kareem and Chubb, I mean, to me, are kind of interchangeable at this point. I mean, I think they're very similar type players at this point in their career. Obviously, Nick and I are really big on Brashard Smith. I mean, the Chiefs are big on Elijah Mitchell if he can stay healthy. Elijah Young was looking really impressive during the rookie minicamp, and the Chiefs were really high on him, and especially just looking at his film coming out of Western Kentucky, and and really interesting to see. I mean, I hadn't really thought about the fact that he transferred out of Missouri when Cody Schrader came in, and I think they were even teammates for a year before Elijah transferred, just knowing that he was not going to be able to supplant Cody Schrader. But he's pretty good running back himself. So Chiefs, everything I get from the Chiefs is that they're happy. But hey, Brett Veach bringing somebody in for a workout to kick the tires never surprises me. So he's always going to take that chance if it's out there. I'd probably be surprised if they ended up signing him, but considering it wouldn't be a shocker at all, Eric. Absolutely. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Let's see. Aaron, I feel like unless Josh Simmons is fully healthy for the start of the season, there will be no starters from this year's draft. Shouldn't that mean this draft from Veach was mediocre at best? I mean, if you're talking about starters this year, Aaron, then possibly. I mean, Omar Norman-Lott could end up starting. Whether or not he's a full-time starter, it's going to give you like 500 snaps. Like I said earlier, it's kind of questionable, but possible. I mean, if you're talking about future starters, I mean, Norman Norman-Lott absolutely is a possible future starter. Could be in 26. Ashton Gelati, I think, might be a starter in 26. Jeff Bassa is going to be a starter at some point. You've got two jobs that are going to be opening up here in 26 and maybe as early as 26 and maybe beyond, two jobs opening up that year, because you've got Drew Tranquill, who I think has got one more year left on his contract, and that's obviously, a walk year possibility. You don't have Leo Chanel signed long-term, so that's a possibility. Jeff Boss is going to be taking one of those starting jobs. I mean, he's that good. And he's a possibility, with the deal that you got with Nick Bolton. Maybe Jeff Boss is your starting middle linebacker one day once Nick Bolton's contract is done. But he's going to be if he stays healthy, he is going to be a starter. He is going to be a good player. I think the same thing with Noel Williams. I mean, I think in 26, I think Noel Williams can be a starter. Brashard Smith, I think, has starting ability. I mean, banking and betting on a 7th round draft pick being a starter, I mean, that's a little bit more of a leap, but I think that, that's the thing, Aaron, especially when you're a team like the Chiefs, and one, you're a Super Bowl team, two, you're drafting at the end of the, each round, your expectations about how quickly someone should be a starter, I think, changes a little bit. And Brett Veach is certainly a GM. He may be a player too. No, he's not. He's I say that jokingly, facetiously. Brett's a happy family man, so I didn't mean that in any other way. I was just meaning it more on just a player in the generic sense. But Brett Veach is a big guy on drafting ahead of need, and he hit spots because Chiefs are going to have starting position needs defensive end, at tackle, offensive tackle, at linebacker, at corner, at running back, all of these spots in 2026. So Even if I told you that the Chiefs didn't have any starters in this year's draft, but I told you they might have 5 starting in 2026, would that make this draft a lot better? I mean, I think that's a distinct possibility. So just because this class may not have anybody that starts in year one, I think there's a ton of starters in this group going forward. So, Brian, thank you very much for reminding everybody to hit that like button. Since I do a terrible, terrible job of it, I appreciate you doing that for me, friend. Ethan, 2 non-football related questions. 1, what was the most random job you've ever worked? And what decade was the toughest for you? Gosh, yeah, I'll bring it up again when Nick's here. So we'll see if Nick has a different answer. I've had several random jobs. Probably the ones that would surprise the most people. I mean, I grew up in the country. So I did have to help out on the family activities, which did include a little bit of dairy farming, a little bit of hay farming, a little bit of just, family farming. So it didn't have to, work 40 acres. I wasn't Yellowstoning it or anything like that. Didn't have to go down to the train station. Never had that situation pop up. But I did rake and bale hay. So that was a lot of fun. Never had to milk the cows, but I did kind of have to, work around the cows. So that was a lot of fun. I guess the one that people are usually most fascinated in, I worked at the Disney store, mostly at Metro North Mall here in Kansas City, but also in Oak Park Mall during the 1990s. So yeah, I was a Disney cast member. That might be my most random job. And the decade, well, here's a tough thing, Ethan. I'm already in my 50s, but I'm already too early to count that one. So I'm only a couple of years in. So even though 50s aren't working great, gosh, 20s. I mean, every decade has their ups and downs and everything. As a young person in the 20s, jobs and setbacks were prevalent. There were some layoffs and things like that would happen. 30s is when I started breaking down physically. So that's when I had my first knee surgery. So I guess I think I was already in my 40s when I had my second knee surgery. 40s physically, yeah. I mean, I would probably say 40s, just because that's when the combination of changing careers and the body breaking down, more another knee surgery, more things like that popping up. I mean, my peak, there's no doubt. I physically peaked at probably like 22. I definitely started going downhill at 32. 42 was when I started the acceleration. So I've given you like 15 different answers, but no, I'm going to say the 40s were probably the most difficult for me. And Nick hasn't even hit his 40s yet, so he's still got some of his best years ahead of him. Alex, do you think Worthy has the potential to be better wide receiver than Hill? Ooh, potential. Sure, I will say that. I mean, I think it's just because, I feel like Tyreek Hill was one of the 3 best receivers in the league at his peak. Can Worthy be one of the 3 best receivers in the league? I mean, he could. I just feel like it might be like a 10 to 15% kind of possibility. I actually think Rashee Rice probably has a higher percentage than that, but both of them have a chance. You need luck. You need to be able to stay healthy. You need to develop. You need to be in the right places at the right times, and you need your quarterback to stay healthy, and you need to be in the game plan. Those are all some things that you can't always control. So, potential, yes. Am I betting on it? No, but it doesn't mean that Xavier Worthy can't be a 1,000-yard receiver and incredibly productive. But talking about just being a top 3 receiver, like I said, I'd give him a 10-15% chance, but just doesn't necessarily mean it's a slam dunk. Scott, with his versatility as a hybrid, is there any chance Noah Williams moves to safety? He's got some Justin Reid in him. It's a good question, and there's always a possibility, but that's the thing, is that Dave Merritt is a defensive backs coach, and especially Steve Spagnuolo with his scheme. That versatility is it's valuable no matter which position you play. If you ask the Chiefs what is I mean, if you look at Shamari Connor and you just look at him on the field and during a practice and what he does, you would say Shamari Connor is a safety. If you look at Shamari Connor, I mean, there's still a lot of people feel like that Shamari Connor is a cornerback because you see him playing nickel corner a lot. You see him in the slot. So you feel like he's a corner. I mean, but by vocation, he's a safety. Yeah, I asked Shamari Connor last year at the Super Bowl what he was, and he told me he's a defensive back. So, I mean, he feels like he's both, but, he works at safety. He just happens to play a lot of slot. No, I mean, that's the thing is that I go back even to 19, and when that Chiefs defense really got rolling, it was when they had Kendall Fuller playing a little bit more of that safety type of role, but they had him opposite Tyrann Mathieu, and they were basically able to play any defense without giving away their look and doing the exact same thing on both sides, and just having those two guys adjust and play wherever they needed to. And you have that ability all over the field, and especially at that position. And I feel like a little bit of that with Shamari Connor and with Justin Reid. Losing Justin Reid will be, a big blow. Do they have a potential Justin Reid in them? I mean, and that's the crazy thing is that, we're talking about Jeff Bossa, being a former safety and a linebacker, and that maybe giving him an option to, maybe be a little bit better in pass coverage. And I'm not talking about Jeff Bossa, all of a sudden, playing safety or anything. But once again, I mean, the Chiefs they love those hybrids across the board, and it does not matter which position that they are. I mean, Connor as a safety could continue to do that. If Noel Williams is your corner version of Shamari Connor, and now you're able to, put those guys on an opposite side of the field and let them kind of play off of each other, I don't think it gives you the same dynamic that you had at times with Justin Reid and with Tyrann Mathieu and with Kendall Fuller. But I certainly feel like there's a possibility, and there's a chance Noah Williams, I mean, if he's a guy that you trust being out there on the field and, could even play and drop back a little bit and to a safety type of role, and you could do that in some of your 5 and 6, back looks and everything, where you've got Williams and Connor on opposite sides, whichever one of them needs to play up in the slot can, and the other one drops back. I mean, you can do those kind of things if you're Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt, and those flexibility guys give you a lot. But I think I get the sense that the Chiefs really like what they see and have in Noel Williams as a corner. So I think it's more ability that his versatility is going to let them do a lot of things with him, but I think he's going to stay a corner. And your second question, Scott, and more for Nick. So I'm sorry Nick's not here this week. He had some things to. Since I mentioned at the top of the show, I don't know if I'd mentioned it since. Nick's couldn't be here tonight for some personal business, but hopefully he'll be able to help be here next week. But curious about not only Hendrickson holding out, but the draft picks too, because of contract wording. And are you talking about the Chiefs draft picks or other draft picks? I'll try and look and see if you got any clarification there, Scott. I mean, as far as like the holdout goes, and this kind of question came up earlier. Could this be a guy that the Chiefs try and go get? I think it's just, I mean, the cost as far as draft picks and compensation, since you're going to have to end up paying him, I don't think that's in anything that's in the budget or the thought process for Brett Veach. I mean, and you're talking about the Bengals, Scott, and their contract wording. Yeah, I mean, I think it's too tough of a needle to kind of thread there, because what Hendrickson's going to want, what the Bengals would want in draft picks, what Brett Veach has and is willing to give up. I mean, I just don't see it being much of a fit. The Chiefs have kind of spent their money in the places that they want to. I'm not sure that they've got a ton of money to spend, for a player of Hendrickson's value and what he would want for. On top of that, I mean, they're trying to invest in the defensive line. I mean, they got a decision to make on Karlaftis. If you're willing to invest in Karlaftis, you're not going to have the money to invest in Hendrickson. They drafted Gelati, which they do feel like Gelati is another George Karlaftis. So you're either going to have 2 George Karlaftises, or you're only going to have one with Ashton Gelati replacing him. We'll see. But yeah, as good as, I mean, I think Hendrickson is and would be great in Kansas City, I just can't see it working out. I would be interested because I have not talked with Nick about what he feels like is the scheme fit. I mean, Hendrickson's good, and so I think he can probably fit in just about any defense. But I think it's from the cost standpoint, just don't think there's anything there. Wade, any insight on Patrick Mahomes' brother trying out? I'm trying to remember his name because it's the tight end. Is it Graham? What was it? Graham Walker. There you go. Thank you very much. I mean, you can see the talent. I mean, he's obviously a good player. I don't think he's quite NFL caliber ready, but I haven't seen. I don't know if he ended up with another tryout this weekend and has signed anywhere or anything of that nature. I could see him getting some tryouts, maybe even popping into a camp and see, but. I don't know how much of anything, and with him coming to Kansas City was just a favorite of Patrick or anything of that nature. I mean, he looked like he belonged. So I mean, he's not that far off from being an NFL caliber player. But there were other guys at the tight end spot that were better than him. So I mean, that's the reason why Jared Briningstool is here, and the Chiefs didn't sign him, didn't sign Graham Walker, but. And the Chiefs were pretty tight-lipped about it. And we did ask to talk to Graham while he was in town, and he did not want to do any interviews. And I completely get that. I mean, I got the sense that it was like he didn't want to talk unless he made the team, and I get that. So that's understandable. So Letcher, I was waiting for you. I expected you earlier, but that's okay. It's okay coming in. But anytime, as long as you got the hooray, it's Q&A day. We're good. Good to see you. John, what is the criteria for the Chiefs to retire a number? Would Clark Hunt ever put a retired number back into circulation? Is this a problem? I mean, the Chiefs don't necessarily have a guaranteed process or criteria for retiring a number, because you can't say that. I mean, they don't have a process. I mean, so it's not like they're even saying, hey, if you retire, if you're a Hall of Famer, going to retire your number. If anything, I mean, the criteria is a lot higher than it used to be because they don't have enough numbers anymore. If I remember off the top of my head, I believe the Chiefs have 10 retired numbers. And they really, I mean, other than 37 not being retired, but being a number that they just avoid using if at all possible, that's 10 numbers. And I was going to say, what was the last time they retired a number? It has been a long time. They have not retired a number. Derrick Thomas was the last one. And even before Derrick, number 58, the last one from a player who, their playing career ended. I mean, that was Jan Stenerud that, finished up in 1979. And at one time, I mean, being a Hall of Famer was a pretty good, way to get your number retired in Kansas City. And then they just ended up with too many Hall of Famers. I mean, when you got 10 retired and, you have 90 player rosters in the off season, you've guaranteed at this point that you're going to have pretty much repeat numbers. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Chiefs did support the rule change to liberalize uniform numbers, because before that, when you couldn't put receivers in the teens and the single digits, that made things really difficult. So they had a lot of duplicate numbers, having to have one on offense and one on defense. So the criteria is much harder now. I mean, the fact that they still circulate 88, I mean, pretty much, tells you everything you need to know about what you got to do in order to get your number retired. There's only two players that could possibly, I think, have their numbers retired. And obviously, that's 15 and 87. I feel like I think you're going to have to retire 87. I mean, they can get away with it. It just increases the numbers that, and again, I mean, that's the only other tricky thing about it is, well, they only have one retired number in the 80s, so that's not a deal breaker. But I mean, I think you have to retire 87, right? And obviously Patrick's on his way to getting 15 retired. So, No, I don't think that there is any consideration whatsoever of putting a retired number back into circulation. And they have a couple of numbers that are retired, for Stone Johnson and Mac Lee Hill, players that passed away. Like I said, never officially retired 37 for Joe Delaney, but also hasn't been used since then. So it's kind of maybe, they've left open the door at least at one point that they could bring back 37. I still think they don't want to. So maybe they'll retire it officially one day. It certainly wouldn't be out of the norm. It's been a long time since the Chiefs have done that, but I could see them sometimes doing it because Joe Delaney still resonates here in Kansas City. They're never bringing one back because if and all indications are, my recollection of it was that at least publicly that Len Dawson was saying that Joe Montana could wear 16 if he wanted to. Maybe that was just a public thing, although that seems like a totally Len Dawson thing to do and say. It's like, hey, if you get Joe Montana here, put 16 on him. But if Joe Montana doesn't wear 16, then they're never unretiring a number. So no, you are limited. You can't just retire a number willy-nilly if you're the Chiefs because you retired so many already. But 87 and 15, they're going to have to retire those numbers, right? Come on. And hey, Justin wants to expand the roster to 63. So, needs to go up to 10 more players. Let's see what other questions going through here. I always love the conversation that you all have. Alex, Jamal Charles should be in the Hall of Fame one day. If Chris Johnson gets in, Jamal should too. Jamal's a really interesting one. His career numbers from just an aggregate standpoint put him in a tough spot. And I think even from just, a positional standpoint, there's probably going to be some running backs that might put up in the future some Jamal Charles-like numbers for their career that might end up getting into the Hall of Fame. And I say, some, maybe one or two, just because his career numbers were so unusual because, the injuries just kind of ended his career. He didn't really, even though he had those couple years there at the end that he was kind of, trying to get back out there and kind of sticking along and everything. He didn't linger, for a bunch of years with just, 500 yards at the end of his career, and it kind of brought down his career numbers. His yards per carry came down a little bit in the last couple of years, and trying to bring up Pro Football Reference, and it's been getting a lot of bad gateways, 504s on errors on that site lately. Let's see. Bring up Jamal. I always want to say he's did he get 6,900 yards rushing, I think? Well, I'm going to have to go somewhere else for Jamal's career numbers. Anywhere else will have them. ESPN will have them. NFL will have them. 7,500. Okay, I'm sure I was probably thinking about his Chiefs numbers. We're about that, but now he got over 7,000 for the Chiefs. In his career average 5.4. To me, he's really on the cusp. Had he had, he's got 5 years with 1,000 yards. He's got it's a good resume. Is it? He wasn't Emmitt Smith. He wasn't like that. He wasn't Barry Sanders. And I say this as somebody, I love watching Jamal, and there was hardly, Barry Sanders is about the only person I've ever seen that was as electric as Jamal was when he was at his best. So if Chris Johnson were to get in, yeah, then I could certainly start making some arguments for Jamal. But I think it's going to be, and once again, we go back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee in the process, that there's going to be some people who are going to be dead set against Jamal because they're going to have some sort of hang up on him for not playing long enough or something of that nature and not having the longevity. But at the same time, Jamal's probably one of those players that might have, I don't know, he might have more success 30 years from now when, the Hall of Fame selection committee is made up of nothing but people who saw him play and, were growing up and watched him play, because people in the NFL and running backs who were of prime influence age, you will hear them talk about Jamal Charles a lot as being an influence on them and being the best running back that they ever saw, if they were just the right age growing up. So you just need that right, I think maybe that selection group that would understand just the greatness of Jamal Charles. Maybe he gets in sooner than I think, though. So, Weston, where's until the Mads come on, Nick? Had some personal things tonight that just got in the way, and since this is his day off, remember, as always, I will always be grateful for any time that Nick can come in and visit. He just couldn't do it tonight, so I know he sends his best to everybody. So let's see. I was waiting, Luttrell. I thought the correct question was coming up earlier when I ended up getting asked by Chris about my rant on the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee. But baseball question: how do you feel about the Pete Rose unbanning? What do you guys? What do you all think? I mean, I'm not going to lie, I have some very, very, very harsh feelings about Pete Rose. I did not like Pete Rose. I still don't like Pete Rose. I mean, the logic of Manfred and Rob Manfred on making the decision to unban everybody who's passed away, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, it makes sense to a degree. I mean, it certainly makes it easier for teams to hold some events and do some things, to remember those players now that maybe they either couldn't or wouldn't or didn't think that they could do in the past. So, if it means more things for fans to, appreciate their old players and do things like that, I got no problems with it. I still wouldn't put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame because I feel like Pete Rose ruined baseball. For those of you who weren't old enough to live through it, and I was my influential late teenager, everything years when Bart Giamatti was the commissioner of baseball. And as you may or may not know, I mean, the man died of a heart attack days after suspending Pete Rose. And it was quite evident that, banning Pete Rose from baseball was a stressful incident. I mean, he didn't want to do it. Pete Rose forced him to with his actions. And Pete Rose never showed any remorse or regret for betting on baseball. And the evidence is that he bet on baseball more and worse than any of us ever believed. It wasn't just like he was skirting the rules or doing something that's perfectly okay now. Players are still not allowed to bet on baseball. The evidence is that what he admitted to, at least at the time, was enough to get you banned from baseball. The reality of it is that the Dowd report and other evidence has suggested over the years that Pete Rose was betting on baseball earlier and much more frequently than anybody even realized back in 1989. What happened in the 1990s in baseball never would have happened had Bart Giamatti not died of a heart attack, which I still completely and totally blame on Pete Rose. So everything that happened in the 1990s, Bud Selig becoming commissioner, all of that nonsense, the strike, everything that happened, I don't think any of it unfolds the way that it did had Bart Giamatti lived. Therefore, I blame that. I blame the steroid era. I blame everything that happened, especially under Bud Selig's watch. But everything that happened from the death of Bart Giamatti and anything that happened with Fay Vincent and Bud Selig as the commissioners of baseball, so much of it still stems back to Pete Rose killing Bart Giamatti. I shall say, well, you know what? Pete Rose can't sue me. He did kill Bart Giamatti, and he ruined baseball. So by that alone, I will never let him into the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe Jackson, having read accounts over the years and everything, there are obviously the people who will always point out that even though Joe apparently took the gambler's money and took $5,000, there's always arguments about whether he did it or not. And then there's these stats that he didn't commit an error in the World Series and hit 379, hit the only series home run for the Black Sox that year in that series. There will be other accounts that say that it was pretty clear that he was on the take because he let some balls drop in front of him and wasn't real whippy with some throws and all of these things. I don't know. I'm torn. I'm more torn on that one. I do understand and get the philosophy that and the understanding that Joe Jackson was just not a very bright individual and was taken advantage of by many, many people in his life and his career. So I don't know. And having read the Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, and then of course, I mean, Field of Dreams is a great movie. So you don't have that without Shoeless Joe Jackson. So for sentimental reasons, I'm much more pro. And Joe and Shoeless Joe did not kill anybody. See, so for those are the reasons I would put him in. And these are, as much as I love Nick, I mean, I would not be able to say this with Nick here because that would reflect poorly on Nick, and I don't like to do those things. So I would not have said this if Nick were here. So now I'm probably going to get in trouble with somebody, probably even YouTube. Who knows? But those are my opinions. I've said it now. I'm done. Thanks, Electro. I don't know if that's what you wanted to start or not, but you got it. Keith, would Clowney be serviceable if the price was right? I don't know about that because I mean Clowney he just seems to bounce from team to team to team, and I'm just not sure if there's anything left in the tank and how much you really want Jadeveon Clowney around. So I don't know. I mean the price would have to be right. Would definitely be league minimum, and nothing guaranteed because I'd like to be able to walk away if things aren't working out real well. It just seems like Clowney's just bouncing around at this point, and it doesn't seem like anybody wants to go out of their way to keep him, long term. So I don't know what's going on there, but the Chiefs are all about building the right 53. So I don't know if J.M. Clowney is part of the right 53. Eric, has anyone seen Mitchell? Is he really going to play? He did one great year with San Francisco. Just wonder if they ran him into the ground. I don't know if there's anything about San Francisco running him into the ground, but injury prone. I think a lot of times is bad luck. I mean, some players maybe they are injury prone. He has kind of had that issue. I don't think he's run into the ground. I mean, it is literally just a matter of staying healthy, and I would be really interested to see what he can do. And maybe there are some players, maybe you do need to, lessen their load a little bit to keep them healthy. And if Mitchell makes this team, I mean, he's not going to be getting 300 touches or anything crazy like that. I mean, he would be part of a committee. So that's where I think he really does fit in. I mean, and obviously the Chiefs have a couple of guys that are physical runners. That's not what they need from Elijah Mitchell. They need somebody to be the electric guy. And I mean, if they had two of those guys with Mitchell and Brashard Smith, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I at his age, everything, I think there's still got to be some football in Elijah Mitchell. So Chiefs are going to find out. And Keith back again. Do you think Reid and Mahomes are tied together for the rest of their careers? If not, which heir apparent would be a good fit, either college or NFL? I mean, I would be. Here's the thing. I mean, it really comes into the question to me is how long is Patrick Mahomes going to play? I mean, is he going to play into his 40s? I mean, if he plays till he's 40, I don't know that, Andy Reid has 10 more plus years in him. So in that case, and it's entirely possible. I mean, Andy Reid's current deal, I think runs through 2030. I mean, runs through like the end of Arrowhead. So really the kind of question is Andy Reid see himself going beyond that? I think that the current deal, I think, will take him into his 70s. I still feel like it's more than likely that Mahomes plays for another coach who's not Andy Reid, and just based on how long I expect Patrick to play. I mean, Patrick could always still surprise us. Maybe he does decide to go at it 36. I mean, I know that being with his family and being around his kids is an important part of his life, and maybe that's going to be more important, to be there, when they get into high school, so maybe that's I don't know what his line of demarcation is, if you will, for when he wants to make sure that he's a full-time dad and to get out of, football. I'll be interested to see how that kind of unfolds, but I do think that, Patrick will play beyond Andy Reid's career. And I mean, unless things change, unless he leaves for another head coaching job, I mean, right now I'd say that Matt Nagy is the most likely heir apparent. And if I'm Matt, I mean, I think I would stick around for that. I mean, if it meant, sticking around in Kansas City as your offensive coordinator for the other 5 or 6 years, and you got to take over for Andy and have Patrick be your quarterback, I mean, that's better than any other situation that you're going to end up in. So that's what I mean, if I'm Matt, that's what I would stick around for. We'll see what happens. I can't really necessarily think of anybody outside that, to me, is, when you're talking about being 5+ years into the future, maybe, that really makes, that you can really think outside the box and say, how could this person come back? Because even if you think about, I mean, you've got a couple of guys who have left, and there could always be, some young guys who leave again, and then, here in the next couple of years. But I mean, I'm thinking of, why am I blanking on the offensive coordinator in New York? I mean, because especially since he was a former quarterback and everything, this is my old age getting to me. Talk about that question about which decades are the roughest. My memory in my 50s is just absolutely going. But hey, is there somebody else in Andy Reid's coaching tree that you can really see coming back and maybe being his successor that's not Matt Nagy? I mean, Matt seems like the most logical. So, and I mean, unless something else really pops up, I mean, is there anybody else from the offensive side? I'm not sure that there's anybody right now in this coaching staff that jumps out to me as like saying, okay, well, that guy is clearly the future head coach of this team. I mean, there might be some future head coaches. Maybe David Girardi, maybe Joe Blameyer becomes that someday and everything. Who knows? But I mean, I mean, unless Matt Nagy leaves for another job, and if I were him, it meant just sticking around Kansas City for 5 years and taking over for Andy when he retired, and that you get to have Patrick for a few more years, that'd be an absolutely great position to me, I think. So, looking through your discussion about the retired numbers and everything, I mean, you got to feel like 87 and 15. I mean, if you're not going to retire 87 and 15, what are you going to retire? I mean, you're not going to retire anything else, and maybe that's a possibility. I mean, and Brian says, hey, 15 and 87 isn't a lock. Kelce did some stuff before Patrick got here, Brian. You don't have to be too much of an instigator, Brian. I love you, man, but I know you like to have some fun. Mike, with the hope that KC plays the younger and faster running backs, which running back would be a surprise trade? I have a hard time seeing Pacheco as the candidate since he was drafted. I mean, that's a good question because, the Chiefs don't typically haven't at this point. I have to go back and just think if there's anybody that I'm really overlooking and everything like this. I mean, the Chiefs haven't really walked away from anyone that they've drafted in the Brett Veach era until one of two things have happened. Either they just simply, wore out their welcome, couldn't play. I mean, Breeland Speaks, they walked away from him, but it wasn't, Breeland wasn't going out and didn't really make an impact anywhere else in the league. You didn't walk away from L'Jarius until he hit, free agent status and, and the franchise tag. I mean, the thing is that if you're going to trade a running back, Pacheco is the only one that has probably any trade value. Kareem doesn't really have any trade value. I mean, if he did, somebody would have signed him in free agency in the off season. Carson Steele, no. I mean, I think other teams would, if they were really interested in Carson Steele, would just play a waiting game and wait until you released him. I think Isaiah Pacheco is the only one that has trade value. So if you were going to try and get anything, I mean, if you're Brett Veach and you're Andy Reid and you decide, okay, wait a minute, we got enough guys and we really don't need Isaiah Pacheco anymore, and maybe doesn't fit in, then maybe you shop him and see what you can get. I mean, that's the only running back I think that you can get any value for. But at the same time, I think the Chiefs still feel like he's got value. So, I mean, if you're going to have a running back by committee and you got an affordable Isaiah Pacheco to be a part of that, I mean, you're trying to win Super Bowls every year, so that's the goal. So, do you feel like Isaiah Pacheco makes it easier for you to win a Super Bowl than more than without him? I mean, I think the Chiefs would absolutely say it's easier with him. So, I think you're right. I don't think that the Chiefs would want to trade Isaiah Pacheco. I just think that he's the only running back that has any trade value. Dads, in your opinion, what player from this year's draft will have the biggest impact until the pads come on? I mean, during this season, it's a really good question. I mean, because I keep saying, I mean, this team they're hoping that Josh Simmons doesn't have an impact this season, because if he doesn't play this year, it's because Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor are playing lights out, and you're not even thinking about benching either one of them and replacing. And the only thing that you could really possibly do would be moving Jalen Moore to the right side if something happened to Jawan Taylor, and you feel like Josh Simmons is ready to go, because I do not get the sense that the Chiefs have any interest in playing Josh Simmons on the right side. I mean, he would only be strictly a left guy. So, your best case scenario is that he doesn't play at all, and that Jalen Moore is great. You don't even want to take the chance of sitting him down. And that Jawan Taylor is great and healthy, and you don't want to sit him down. So in that scenario, I mean, and I'm cautious on receivers, because even though Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice both came in and had really, really good rookie seasons, they also weren't fourth-round draft picks, and history tells you that first and second-round picks for Andy Reid have a lot better history than later-round picks as far as just picking things up. Doesn't mean that Jalen Royals might surprise us, but then again, I mean, Jalen Royals, if everything goes well, is your fourth receiver at best this year. And once again, you're hoping that, because if he's your fourth receiver, then it means that Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown were all healthy and had good years. So if I told you that Jalen Royals had 200 yards receiving this year and was their number 4 receiver, well, I think you'd be okay with that, because it probably means that those 3 guys in front of him all had a whole lot better years than he did. It's really, I mean, and again, I mean, I feel like Jeff Bossa, no matter, once again, I mean, if things go really, really well, he's probably your fourth linebacker and coming off the bench. Noel Williams, I mean, there's a scenario where Noel Williams, even things go really, really well, and it's just that he's good enough that he's one of your top 3 corners and plays a lot. I mean, I keep trying to talk myself out of it being Omar Norman Lott, but increasingly, as far as you're talking about impact in 2025, I mean, it might be Omar Norman Lott. And I mean, I still think the sleeper is Brashard Smith, because I could see either he just comes in and is so good that they can't keep him down, or a couple of guys get hurt, Brashard gets an opportunity, lights the world on fire, and next thing you know, I mean, he's just ripping off and becomes the starter and never looks back. Who knows? Doesn't I'm trying, like I said, I'm just trying to talk myself into being anybody, and nothing against Omar Norman Lott. It's more of just, once again, I mean, a defensive tackle, interior pass rusher. You got Chris Jones. I mean, what's his role? How many snaps is he going to play? But he might end up being the guy that plays the most and has the biggest impact. So for now, until the pads come on and we know any more information, dads, I'm leaning right now towards Omar Norman Lott, but can always change that. Oh, Brian made a great point about Bill Romanowski. Yeah, Bill was a bad dude. I'll tell you what, I feel that exact same way in baseball about AJ Pierzynski. I mean, if you told me that AJ Pierzynski was sent to prison, I'd say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds on brand. Luke, who's your favorite all-time Chiefs player to interview? Ooh. Dang, that's a really good question, because I mean, there's a lot that I've really enjoyed talking to over the years, and for different reasons. I mean, Justin Reid was always fantastic to talk to. He was amazing, and some because they're outgoing and they say, they give you entertaining things to say. I mean, you don't talk to Travis enough, so it's always fun talking to Travis, and do enjoy talking ball with him. Tyreek was always a lot of fun. I mean, even once again, we didn't get to talk to him very much. I mean, I'll tell you what, probably my favorite, because I feel like he was the easiest to talk to. gave the best and most thoughtful answers. Was just and there's a lot of players who I would say, are outgoing, and and even though he was quiet, but he was always receptive, and they always worked with you, and I don't think ever turned anybody down. And there's a lot of people that I would absolutely give some mad props to, because Alex Smith was always a great person, but I would really get to talk to him and scrums. I never really did any one-on-one conversations with him. There's been a lot. I mean, and guys that would be below your radars that you don't really think about. I mean, I talked a lot because he had a locker that was readily available. It was usually always in the locker room. I talked a lot over the years with Jordan Lucas when he was here, and he was a lot of fun to talk to and gave me a lot of insight. Chris Oladokin now, I mean, always talks to me, and and is always available, and always has some really good insight in just the quarterback play and what goes on. And I've learned a lot about practice squad plays and running scout team, all those things from him. I mean, he's been really outgoing. But at the end of the day, Mitchell Schwartz, I think, has to win it, just because Mitchell was always available. He was funny. He was, I mean, very self-aware. I mean, he was just an all-around good dude. I mean, he always gave thoughtful answers. He was always available. He never turned anything down. I will say current players that also fit into that category, and I think I even told the experience. If I haven't, I'll tell the story sometime. Mike Pennell right now would be in that category for me. Mike Pennell. I mean, unless he's like busy because he's got something else on his schedule, he will never turn you down for an interview. He was a stand-up guy after the Super Bowl. He's really outgoing. I mean, talkative, and once again, really thoughtful player to talk to. There's a lot. I mean, I feel terrible sliding anybody, but I would say Mitchell is definitely, I've got a big heart for the offensive line guys. I mean, that's where I live in the locker room. So I say those are my guys because that's the part of the locker room that I relate to the most. So I enjoyed talking to them all. And Andrew Wiley was always a great interview for me. Austin Ryder was always fantastic. He was a lot of fun. Even though I didn't get to be around him a lot, there were some other players like, I didn't get to cover Jeff Allen very long, but he was incredible. There's some other veterans too that I'm just kind of forgetting about and everything. But offensive line guys, by and large, are always some of the best players to interview and talk to. They're really thoughtful, usually really smart. Let's see, getting ready to wrap up here. Like I said at the beginning of the show, and I'll remind for anybody who was not here, Nick couldn't be here tonight. He had some personal business to attend to, so hopefully he will be able to join us on his off day next week, since he's always here on his off day out of the generous nature of his heart. Tomorrow night, I am going to have another live stream for Wednesday, 7 o'clock for the NFL schedule release. So we can go over the schedule, talk about what you like. Thank you, Keith, for mentioning, yes, Mike Kafka, since I could not remember his name for the life of me a little bit ago. Yeah, I would still say Matt Nagy's the more likely heir apparent outside of anybody who's left and could come back. And if we're just talking the offensive side, you talk about the defensive side, are some really good coaches and some guys that if they get a chance to move up and be D coordinators, maybe they put themselves into the conversation. But I think Matt Nagy would still be my bet as the future heir apparent. But before I diverted myself, squirrel, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, schedule release. We will do another live discussion here on Chiefs Digest. I doubt Nick will be able to join us for that one because he is working and he's going to be doing his own schedule release work over at KSHB. We'll see. I'll try and see if I can't get maybe another guest maybe join us and give their thoughts on the schedule and what they think. But if not, we can all just hang out and talk about it and discuss what we do like, what we don't like about the schedule, some of the best games, the worst games, where you want a road trip to, where you don't. Really interested to see, when the Cowboys game comes out. I mean, I think it would be a lot of fun if the Chiefs played the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. It would just really stink because that is a good game to travel and go to. Jerry World is a stadium that you need to go see. I went down there. I road trip down to that game in 2017 for the Hail Mary with my best bud Steven, and he went. I was working the press box. He went to the game on his own, got a ticket. He was tailgating outside, and Cowboy fans were very gracious to him and let him join in on some of their stuff. Cowboy fans they're good people for the most part. I mean, even though they can be here's the thing. I mean, and I'm going to insult some people here, and I get it, but I'm a Mizzou guy, so it's how I am and everything. Cowboy fans, you would think, would be like Nebraska football fans, but they're not. They're, for the most part, actually pretty cool. So, and not in the condescending way, because that's how Nebraska football fans are. And if you're a Nebraska football fan, I'm sure you're a perfectly nice person. And it's only the other 70,000 in the stadium that really make it, a bad experience for people. So if you're watching this and you're a Nebraska football fan, I truly believe that you're a good person. It's the ones that aren't watching this that are the ones you got to watch out for. So now that I've gotten myself in all the trouble that I possibly can tonight, looking over to see if we have any. Yeah, Weston, I'm bound and determined to make that happen, Weston. So don't give up. All right, I think our last question that we got from Mitchell to close it out: which Chiefs player do you hope really improves their play from last season? I mean, there's a lot that could fit into this category, but I would still say that for him and for the Chiefs, the player that, if they could improve the most from last year, that would help both sides the most, I mean, it's Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I mean, you really would like to see, I think, Felix play into becoming a player that's good enough that, one, you're going to want to pick up his fifth-year option. If he goes out and has that kind of year that you're like, now all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're picking up that fifth-year option, he's becoming the guy that you want to be. The Chiefs could use that because obviously they need more help in pass rush. If Felix can do that, he's well on his way to setting himself up to getting a good second contract. So it's kind of one of those twofers. I feel like George Karlaftis kind of has this too, because the Chiefs have picked up that fifth-year option for him, but I feel like both those guys in the same position, although Felix in a different spot because he hasn't had that breakout season yet. George has had a good season, but both those guys are in a position of having really two contract years in front of them. If Felix has a huge breakout season in year 3, he's got 10 plus sacks or something, you're the Chiefs, you're picking up that fifth-year option, he's making some coin, and he's putting himself into, even if he has a step back, in his fifth season, that fourth or fifth seasons, then he's still got that year to bank on. Karlaftis, he's got 2 years where, hey, if he puts up double-digit sacks in either the next 2 seasons, or has like a 15 sack season in either of the next 2 years, he's putting himself into going and getting a great second contract. So, there's a lot of guys that, hey, if they bounce back, you would love to see bigger numbers from Karlaftis and Chris Jones from last year. But if you're just talking about purely improving play, the guy I think I'd like to see that from the most, because I think it would help both the Chiefs and the player himself, it's Felix. And we'll just see if he can go out there and get it done. So everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. Sorry Nick couldn't be here. Hopefully he'll be able to be back and join us next week. We'll have a lot of fun. Like I said, tomorrow night I'm going to do another live stream for Wednesday crowd. Maybe some of you who are listening on the during the day or near later Tuesday night or first thing Wednesday, if you want to join us, because you can't join us on Tuesday nights, we'll be here. Might not be a 2-hour discussion, we'll see how long it goes, but we'll talk about the schedule and maybe some other things that we didn't get to tonight, anything that pops up. Everybody have a great rest of the Tuesday, great day on Wednesday, and hopefully can see you for a little bit. Aaron, it'll be 7:00 Kansas City time, so thank you for asking about that. Chris, hey, just glad you can join us all. Now you can come back on Wednesday, Chris. So see you all soon, whether it's tomorrow night, whether it's 4001 is the mic on Sunday, or next Tuesday for the next Q&A. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. And